Hello and welcome back to the simulated 2024 F1 World Championship. This is round number 16 of 24 from Monza in Italy. It's time for the final race of the European leg of this season, and we head into the home of Ferrari, who, in this simulated season, have shown some positive momentum. Hopefully, for the tifosi, this progress continues into their home race. Here's how the driver standings shape up after last time out at the Netherlands. Max Verstappen extends his lead at the top of the standings with his nearest rivals faltering. Tsunoda jumps back up to P2 with Leclerc rising to P3 and Norris dropping down to P4. Hamilton drops down to 5th after a DNF at Zandvoort, with Carlos Sainz leaping up to P6 after taking the victory last time out. His compatriot Alonso is in P7, with Gasly, Piastri and Perez not too far behind, rounding out the top 10. The Constructors' standings sees Ferrari take the lead, with Red Bull slipping to 2nd and McLaren losing some momentum in 3rd. RB continue to keep themselves honest in 4th, but Mercedes are only 7 points back in P5. Aston Martin are kind of alone in P6, with Sauber having some decent results as of late to keep themselves in P7. Alpine aren't too far behind in 8th, Williams remain 9th and Haas is still in last. Compared to the actual standings, Verstappen's lead over Norris has gone down to 70 points thanks to the Brits win in Zandvoort. Leclerc gained some points on Piastri in P3 and P4 respectively, with Sainz keeping himself in the hunt for 3rd in the standings. Hamilton remains in 6th after a disappointing showing, with Perez closing in by a small amount. Russell remains 8th, and the two Astons of Alonso and Stroll continue to round out the top 10. As for the Constructors, Red Bull's lead to McLaren is now down to just 30 points, leaving the door open for a fierce Constructors battle. Ferrari are in the hunt too, only being a further 34 points back. Mercedes lose some ground in 4th, and Aston Martin remain very lonely in 5th. RB and Haas's battle for P6 remains stationary, with Alpine slowly creeping up on the pair. Williams remain in 9th, and Sauber are still in last, looking very unlikely to score anything right now. Now, it's time to find out who will be racing as for the Italian GP. With Carlos Sainz being removed from the wheel, we are now down to only 5 drivers waiting to be selected. Without further ado, let's spin the wheel and find out who will be racing as around Monza. And the wheel selects Zhou Guanyu in the kick Sauber. Sauber have shown a lot more promise in this simulated season over the real one, so can we keep the positive momentum going and get a good result for the Chinese driver? It's time for the Italian Grand Prix.
For over a century, the Temple of Speed has all come down to moments like this. Driver versus the stopwatch to set the grid for the Grand Prix. It is qualifying at Monza.
So here we are then in the Kick Sauber garage as Zhou Guanyu, Chinese driver here in Italy, home of Ferrari, home of the tifosi. We'll see whether we can upset their party tonight as we head to the end of Q1 here, doing our lap, getting into Q2. Do we make it into Q2? Yes we do, but only in P4. We're used to being P1, but it's Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz currently P1 and P2. In Q1 there for Ferrari, and we've lost on Q1 both the Alpines of Ocon and Gasly, 16th and 17th respectively, Sergio Perez in 18th, Lance Stroll in 19th, and Logan Sargent in 20th position. The whole grid separated by only 8 tenths there. Very interesting stuff as we move on to Q2 now, once again doing our lap here at the end, down the very long start-finish straight, as we do make it into Q2, but only in P7. So we don't really have some good pace around here, but we are still making it through qualifying. We've lost from Q2, Valtteri Bottas, our teammate, Oscar Piastri in the McLaren, bit of a shocker for him there. Nico Hülkenberg in 13th, Lewis Hamilton again out in Q2 for the 2nd race in a row in P14, and we also lost Daniel Ricciardo in the RB. Very interesting stuff there. Hamilton out in Q2 again, not very good for him or his title chances. He's currently in P5 in the championship, and if he keeps qualifying like that, he's going to lose even more ground after the end of this race as we move to our lap in Q3 now, heading through Sector 1 through the first chicane. Very good stuff. Nicely done as we head through the Curva Grande, I believe this corner is called, not this game. This game is F1 24 and I regret buying it. As we set the fastest Sector 1 here, going through the second chicane, we do take a lot of curb there, going out the Chicane going into Lesmo number 1. Lifting up a little bit there, but not too bad. A corner through Lesmo 2 now. Still not too bad. Could have been better, could have been a lot worse. Hopefully we'll keep up the good momentum going through the lap here. As we move to the end of Sector 2 now, we're about 3.5 tenths ahead of Alonso's time. But we do make some mistake. We do make a little bit of a mistake going into Ascari. I feel like we could have gone a lot faster there. We did lift off a lot to try and keep the car under control. So we probably lost a lot of time. I don't think we're going to head through poles. We head through Parabolica. That's the corner. Gotta remember these corner names. I don't even remember all the corner names on this track. Probably should have studied them beforehand. As we cross the line and we end up P6 in Q3. So not pole position for us. Pole position does go to Max Verstappen in the Red Bull. Not surprising there. Lando Norris in P2. Charles Leclerc in P3. George Russell in 4th. Alexander Albon 5th in the Williams. Very good qualifying for the Williams driver there. Zhou Guanyu in 6th, that's where we are. Fernando Alonso just behind us in P7. Yuki Tsunoda is in 8th. Carlos Sainz in 9th, a bit disappointing for the Ferrari's home race down there. And then Kevin Magnussen rounds up the top 10 in the Haas. So there we go, qualifying is done. The grid is set. It's now time for the Italian Grand Prix.
This is one of the tracks that inspires adoration and nostalgia in the hearts of every generation of Formula One fan. Welcome to Monza. It's raining out there. 3.6 miles of Monza circuit will therefore be pretty tricky in these low grip conditions. We've got the Parabolica, or as it's now known, the Curva Alboreto. It's going to put the drivers to the test. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. World champion Max Verstappen starts from pole position, and Lando Norris lines up alongside. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Leclerc, Russell, Albon, Zhou, Fernando Alonso, Tsunoda, Sainz, Magnussen, Bottas, Oscar Piastri, Hülkenberg, Hamilton, Ricciardo, Ocon, Gasly, Perez, Stroll and Logan Sargent. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today? And we welcome you to the commentary box overlooking the circuit. I'm Alex Jakes and I'm joined by Anthony Davidson. Now, those final hours before a race, did you have a routine?
Well, for them, you've got your pre-race rituals that you go through. You see different drivers that, some have got their headphones on, they're listening to the music. Some drivers really absorb the energy from the crowd and they're there waving to them. Other drivers, they go within themselves. They chat to their engineers, absorbing that information, that vital information that you need to carry you through the race. And, those pre-race rituals are essential to making things systematic. We do a lot of Grand Prix in a season, and the more systematic you can be, the easier you are within that environment.
They're still talking about the bloody pre-race rituals. I wish they'd say something different. But yes, here we are on the grid for the Italian Grand Prix, and it is raining. So this is going to be a tricky one indeed. And judging by the session forecast up there, looks like it's going to be raining for the entirety of the race. So unless something happens near the end, then we're going to have a fully wet race. Looking to do a one-stop there with the intermediates changing around the halfway point. I reduced my fuel because I don't need that amount of fuel, let's be honest. And yep, everyone's starting on the intermediates. No need for the full wets. The rain is not that heavy. We'll see whether it dries up later on in the race or if the rain gets heavy and we have to go on to the full wets. But nonetheless, starting from P6, hopefully we can make up some ground and hopefully the rain becomes a bit of a neutralizer. Because our pace is not leader worthy, at least not at the moment, but hopefully with the rain our pace can be a little bit better through this 53 lap race. It's still going to be a very short race even with the rain. So yes, it's definitely the shortest race of the season. Even with the rain, it's still going to be pretty gosh darn short. As we line up on our grid box there in P6, we see the last few drivers getting into their positions. for the long run down into turn 1. It is a very long run down to turn 1 and quite narrow as well as we hit the 5 red lights. The lights held for quite a while there, but it's lights out and away we go. It's a bit of a tepid start. Russell getting a little bit out of shape there, going down the straight. I think being caught unawares by Norris not having the greatest of starts there. As you can see, it's 3 wide with Norris, Albon and Leclerc going through to turn 1. I tried to make it a move on the inside of Russell, but I have to go wide going through turn 2 there, which means Russell does keep the place. But we do have a lot of traction coming out of the corner, which means we're side by side for the Curva Grande, and with our superior straight line speed there, we actually make the move on Russell, so we're actually up a position from the start. We're up to P5 now, as we see Norris and Albon going side by side into the second chicane there. Norris keeping the position, allowing Verstappen to get away. It's already 2.5 seconds. And we're not even halfway for the first lap yet. He's already 2.5 seconds, as Russell tries to make a move through Lesmo 1. I kind of leave the door open there, but through Lesmo 2 I do brake a little bit later and keep the position. Probably shouldn't have left the door open there for Russell, but I did, which allowed him to have a little sniff. But he is having another sniff now as we go down straight here into Ascari. He's trying to take the inside line, but once again I brake later going into Ascari, which allows me to keep the position. So we're up to P5 from P6 on the grid, but Russell is hounding us going into lap 2. And we do catch up to this gaggle of cars here. Norris, Albon and Leclerc, who are all still battling for P2 on this track. As we head for the Curva Grande, we get a massive slipstream from Leclerc and Norris, which allows us to go side by side with Leclerc and Norris going 3 wide into the second chicane. I take the inside line, brake latest of all, and I end up doing a double overtake going through the second chicane. So we're now at a P3 halfway through lap 2. Very good stuff there. We do have a little bit of a drift coming out of Lesmo 1. Doesn't cost us too much time. But go for Lesmo 2. We're now at to P3. We're up into the podium positions. As we see now on lap 3 going through Ascari here. Trying to close down an Albon. But we actually do make a little bit of a mistake going through Ascari. And we hit the curb a lot there. Coming out of Ascari. Which allows Leclerc to catch up to us. And he's going side by side down towards the Parabolica. It depends on who brakes later or not. Who's going to brake later? Who's going to brake later? Oh, we make contact going into to the Parabolica, and Leclerc ends up spinning out. Spinning out somewhat. A half spin there for Leclerc going for the Parabolica. We didn't make the slightest bit of contact going through there. It's up in the air whether whose fault that was. But yes, Leclerc being the big loser there. As we gained a lot of distance, actually, from Leclerc there. As we see Ocon battling with Hamilton now for the first chicane. And Ocon actually making the move on Hamilton. As we go through the Curva Grande again. Lap 5. Ocon getting past Hamilton. As we see Russell locking up going into the Parabolica. And losing 3 positions to Leclerc, Tsunoda and Alonso. Very unfortunate there for Russell. He did have a big lock-up in Zandvoort as well, which cost him quite a bit of time. And then further behind on the same lap, Magnussen ends up doing the exact same thing as Russell does, but ends up losing way more positions as he falls down to P13, just ahead of Russell's teammate Hamilton there, who is not making much progress up the field. As we move on to lap 17 now, we see Pierre Gasly stopping very early on for a new set of intermediates. It looks like he's going to do the 2-stopper. I think the tyre wear around this track is actually a lot higher than expected, and the tyre temperatures are proving to be a bit of an issue for everyone here, as Gasly pulls away now, going into the second phase of this race. He's down in last, obviously, because he's the first one to pit, and you can actually see there my tyre wear. My rear left is at 69% tyre wear, which shows you a lot. It's actually kind of weird because my rear left is at 69% and my front right's at 19%. So there's a lot of load on the rear left there. But we are right behind Albon, but we are struggling to get traction out of the Parabolica as we come in now for our pit stop on lap 22 or 23, a few laps earlier than expected, which means we may have to do a 2-stopper here to get to the end of this race, which could put us on the back foot here. As we pull into our pit box now to put on another set of intermediates. Smooth pit stop, 2.4, and we're on our way. As we move down now to P9, possibly P10, we got our teammate Bottas, who's going to be side by side with us as we come out the pit lane. And of course with his momentum, he breezes past us, so we're now down to P10, still in the points. But we do have some overtaking to do Hopefully Bottas can let us through pretty easily, considering we're on different strategies, as Pierre Gasly sets the fastest lap of the race, so definitely a good call to go on to new intermediates. It depends on whether everyone else does the same call, really. As we move on to lap 23 now, we got a lot of advantage here on Bottas. Obviously no DRS because of the wet conditions, and we basically breezed past Bottas, really going into Ascari. Bottas lets off the gas to allow us through, and we're up to P9 now. As we go hunting for Carlos Sainz, and it doesn't take us too long to hunt down Carlos Sainz. Us setting the fastest Sector 2 of the race, we actually had the fastest lap of the race right now, compared to everyone else. And we have so much more traction than the Ferrari driver, who has yet to pit in for a new set of intermediates. And on the straight down to the Parabolica, we take the slipstream, we pull down the outside to get the racing line, and we breeze past Sainz into P8. Not much of an overtake really, considering Sainz was going to pit in anyway, but we do need to make a lot of ground, considering we're trying to undercut Albon as well. Remember that, we were right behind Albon as we came into the pits. As we see now the leader, Max Verstappen, coming in on lap 25, going into 26 on his next set of intermediates. He may pursue the one-stop here, but it's going to be pretty hard to do the one-stop, considering the tyre wear of these intermediate tyres is quite high in these wet conditions. It's a very interesting scenario as we move on down, still on lap 26. We're basically pushing Russell through Lesmo 2 there, nearly making contact as we try to overtake him, and we get the slipstream. Once again, we take to the outside line for Ascari, which is the racing line. And Russell, knowing there's not really much point in fighting, considering Russell has to pit in anyway, lifts off the gas and lets us through, and we're up to P7. Albon currently in the lead there, but not for long, as they all pit in, which allows us to actually undercut Albon by a considerable margin. In fact, we're actually only 2 seconds behind Verstappen in the lead there. But we're now up to P2, going into the second phase of this race. And Albon now, being like a second ahead of us, is now 8 seconds behind, going into the second phase of this race. So the undercut has proved to be very useful here, moving to the second phase of the race. But as you can see, our rear left is already on 11% wear, which is definitely not going to help us, as we see a battle here for 18th place, basically the last 3 positions, between Sargent, Ricciardo and Hulkenberg, and they all go 3 wide into the first chicane. Somehow none of them make contact. But the big winner here seems to be Sargent, who seems to is a P18, Ricciardo in last, and Hulkenberg trying to look for a move on Sargent, going for the second chicane, thinks better of it and decides to slot in behind. As we see Verstappen, not much happening in this race really from this point. We just see Verstappen leading the race. He's slowly building a gap from us. It's now, the gap's now 3.6 seconds as we went through the first chicane there. Moving on to lap 42. You can see the orange icon on my MFD there, indicating that, well, yeah, my tyres are pretty much hosed. As we go through the Parabolica, we're sliding through the Parabolica even, and we decide to cut our losses and go in for a second pit stop, and hopefully gain some positions at the end of this race. As we head into the pit lane now, we should rejoin at about P5 or P6, behind Leclerc or Alonso. Albon and Norris will definitely pass us. I think Leclerc will definitely pass us as well. So it'll probably be a fight between me and Alonso going out of the pit lane here as we pull into our box. And it's a 2.4 stop, but I misjudge releasing the clutch. And that does cost us about a second or two, which allows Alonso to go past us. And Tsunoda is coming in as well. We definitely want to get out ahead of Tsunoda. We try to get up to speed, try to rev up, try to go for the gears. We see Tsunoda in our rear view mirror, and we just come out in front of Tsunoda, which is good for us. We're rejoined in P6, and hopefully we can get some overtaking done in the last few laps to hopefully get back on the podium. As we see Lance Stroll now in the other Aston Martin in P17. Once again, having a good race, and his race goes from bad to worse as he seems to be pulling over. His engine has gone kaput on lap 43, and Stroll is going to be the first retirement of this Italian Grand Prix as he pulls over to the side of the track. And not good for us, as that does put a risk of a VSC or safety car, which would definitely not benefit us, as, well, we just pitted, and sure enough, VSC comes out. The only saving grace is that none of the front runners are near the pit lane, so we need this VSC to end quickly, and it does, thankfully. as we move to the end of lap 44, and I kind of misjudged my the green flag there, as I nearly lose it for Ascari, but we don't, and thankfully all things are kind of like stationary, thanks to everyone being quite far away from the pit lane during the VSC, so no one was able to come in for a cheap tyre change. As we move to overtaking Alonso now on lap 45 of 53, with our much fresher tyres, we made the move stick around the outside. That seems to be our favourite overtaking spot really this race, and we move up to P5. Next target is Leclerc, as you can see just up the road there in P4. As we move now to lap 48, and we're making our run on Leclerc now. Once again, no DRS because it's raining, and so we just have to rely on the slipstream, and we get a lot of slipstream coming down the straight into Ascari, and Leclerc kind of gives up the spot as well. We move up to P4. So now it's a battle between me, Albon, and Norris for P3. Hopefully I can catch up to them before the end of the race. But Verstappen looks like he's going to win the race, or is he? Because Verstappen on lap 50 going on to 51 is coming in for another tyre change. Very surprising there from Red Bull. Maybe he had a slow puncture, or maybe his tyres were just giving up. But on lap 50 going into 51, Verstappen has voluntarily given up the lead and potentially the victory here for another set of intermediate tyres. Very strange. So now we're in a three-way fight for the win essentially between Albon, Norris and myself. And with me with much fresher tyres, I catch up to the pair going on to lap 52, the penultimate lap of this race. So yeah, this is going to be a very interesting podium between Albon, Norris and Zhou. We see Norris trying to make the move for the lead of the race going into the first chicane. He kind of does a half-hearted move really as we go for the first chicane, and that allows me to catch up to the pair of them. So now we're going 3 wide near on, going into the Curva Grande. I go side by side with Albon, get the move done into P2, and the slipstream allows me to catch up to Norris and blast past Norris for the lead of the Italian Grand Prix. Unbelievable scenes. With 2 laps to go, I did not expect to be leading this race at all. I expected Verstappen to just walk it. But with him pitting in, suddenly we're in the hot seat to win the whole thing. Unbelievable stuff. As we pull away from Norris and Albon now, who are locked in to get second or third. Or are they? Because both of them are coming in on the final lap of this race to put on intermediates. What on earth is going on? What on earth is going on in this race? I don't know. I'm not. Could their tyres really not have lasted an extra lap? They could have easily got podium, the pair of them. But no, they've both given up the podium places. Leclerc also coming in, along with a lot of other drivers on the last lap of this race. Unbelievable scenes here. But Norris comes out just ahead of Albon in P3, so it's going to be a very close fight between them for the last podium place. But for us, though, us pitting in a much earlier lap, I think it was lap 42, has worked out wonderfully for us, as we now have a 6.5 second advantage over Verstappen on the last lap here. And honestly, after lap like 5 or 6, I really didn't expect us to end up leading and winning the whole thing. But due to some weird pit stop strategies by the other teams, it's going to be Zhou Guanyu who wins the Italian Grand Prix. Unbelievable.
Let's go, guys. Let's go.
Unbelievable stuff there. What a win for Kick Sauber. I'm sure they're going to be celebrating long into the night. Pierre Gasly is driver of the day. Some weird pit stop strategies today. But in the end, it's Zhou who takes it.
What an extraordinary performance from Zhou Guanyu, who takes the checkered flag.
You always look back at a race like this and think, if I'd just made that mistake there or locked up here, there would have been contact. And every one of those overtakes is a moment where you have to absolutely nail it, perfect it, and that's exactly what they're able to do today. Great stuff indeed.
Sauber have been winning fans the world over with their brilliant driving, showing that they're a force to be reckoned with out there on the track. They'll certainly be building on that fan base after today's excellent result.
So there we go, that is Zhou Guanyu, the Chinese driver, taking the win here at Monza. Unbelievable stuff. We did not expect to win. I thought it was going to be Verstappen who was just going to walk it, but Verstappen coming in on lap 50 of 53. His tyres giving up. Him having to go into a new set of intermediates gave us the victory here in Monza. Very unlikely victory, as I said, but we'll take the victory nonetheless. So after 53 laps, it's Zhou Guanyu who is the victor here in Monza. Max Verstappen in P2. Lando Norris just holds off Alexander Albon for the final podium spot. Charles Leclerc, highest of the Ferraris, here in 5th. Not a very good result for the Scarlet team today. Alonso in P6, Gasly in P7 after starting from P17. A very good result for him. Yuki Tsunoda in 8th, Sergio Perez in 9th, and Logan Sargent finally gets his first points of the season with a P10 finish here in Monza. Very good stuff. Double points there for Williams, in fact. As for the rest of the finishers, we've got George Russell in P11, Carlos Sainz down in P12, Oscar Piastri 13th, Lewis Hamilton in 14th, so no points for Mercedes today. Ocon in 15th, Magnussen 16th, Bottas down in P17, Hülkenberg in 18th, and Daniel Ricciardo is the last of the classified finishers in P19. And we had one retirement, which was Lance Stroll in the Aston Martin. And there we go, that is the Italian Grand Prix done. Next race is in 2 weeks' time. I believe that is the 13th of September. That will be the Azerbaijan Grand Prix in Baku. We are done with the European races. We're now heading further east, going eastwards towards Azerbaijan and then towards Singapore after that. But yeah, we got the street race around Baku. It's going to be very tight, very technical. Definitely a different beast to Monza. So yeah, hopefully we can do well at Baku. Hopefully we don't crash into the wall, but that's pretty likely considering the track. So yes, 2 weeks time, 13th of September, Azerbaijan Grand Prix around Baku. Hopefully you'll join me for that one. As for the standings, after Monza, Max Verstappen is still in the lead now. He has a 26-point advantage over Lando Norris, who moves back up to P2, thanks to Norris being on the podium here in Monza. Leclerc in P3, Tsunoda drops down to P4, with Norris and Tsunoda essentially swapping places. Leclerc remains in P3. Hamilton still remains in 5th after a very disappointing race here in Monza. Carlos Sainz also remaining in 6th. Only 1 point now ahead of Fernando Alonso, who is in P7. Pierre Gasly is in 8th. Alexander Albon moves back up to the top 10 with a very good finish for him. And Oscar Piastri rounds up the top 10. As for the constructors, Red Bull are now back in the lead of the championship ahead of Ferrari. Only 3 points ahead of Ferrari, in fact, with McLaren still remaining in 3rd, but moving very much further away from RB, who are now 30 points behind the Papaya team. Mercedes lose some ground to RB with a pointless finish here at Monza. They remain in 5th. Aston Martin remain in 6th. Kick Sauber with a whole bunch of points are taking the win and the fastest lap remain in 7th, but are closing in on Aston Martin. Maybe with some more good results, maybe they'll overtake Aston Martin come the end of the season. Alpine remain in 8th with 104 points thanks to Gasly's comeback for the field. Williams with a double points finish remain in 9th but are only 10 points behind Alpine, but they are getting away from Haas, who still remain in last with 61 points to their name. And there we go, that is the Italian Grand Prix done and dusted. A very weird, very interesting race, an all-wet race with some weird tyre strategies at the end, which gave us the victory. Kind of weird stuff from the AI, but it is F124, and we know F124 is a perfect game with no flaws whatsoever, so there we go. But yeah, overall, that is it for today. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, please give it a comment, make sure to subscribe, because there's still plenty of races. We've got 8 races left this season, which means 8 more videos left to go. And yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this race, and I'll see you all for the next one.